Had it hovering over the S&P bin many a time, but I've decided to keep it and see if I can, I don't know, fall in love with it somehow, but I doubt it, so this goes into D class. In this video, I'm going to rank all the plants that I have in my house. I'm going to show you all the stars and all the dogs to separate the wheat from the chaff and let you know which plants I recommend and which plants I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. So my tier rank will go from D all the way to S, which might sound a bit weird, but D is where the dogs will go. C is where the plants that are a bit meh, not really doing much for me. B is kind of like, okay, this is pretty good plant, pretty easy to look after as well. And then A has to be really nice plant and easy to look after. And then S is where the really special plants go. S for special. So there's only going to be a select few that get to make it into S. As always, let me know if you agree with where I put my plants. This is all my personal opinion, so don't shoot me down too much in the comments. And let's roll to the first one. This bad boy here sat on my kitchen windowsill, but goes straight into S class. It's my Tradescantia tricolour, and I absolutely love it looks-wise. I love the colour of the purple, pink, cream and green leaves, absolutely stunning. And it's got little white flowers that it produces pretty much all summer, really. But the problem with this guy is a little bit tricky to keep looking as nice as this. So it's the beginning of summer at the moment, so lots of fresh leaves have popped out. It's looking really handsome, but come towards the end of summer, some of the leaves tend to die back a bit, like that one there, and it ends up looking a bit like a mess, because as with all Tradescantia, it's not really how it wants to grow, hanging down from the pot. It wants to creep along the floor so it can attach its roots onto the ground and grow stronger and stronger. So tricky to keep looking its best. So it goes into A class. I've got an Aglaonema up here, which I've just noticed for the first time has some yellowing leaves. It's got two yellowing leaves, one there and one there. It's the first time this plant has got yellowing leaves. Might just be due to age. Looks like it's the oldest leaves. Some of the oldest leaves on the plant. Yeah, they're right at the base, that one is. So you can't just pull off yellow leaves like this. So I'm thinking it's just an age thing, but I will check the roots to make sure everything's okay. But normally, this Aglaonema tigres is very, very easygoing. Very easygoing indeed. Doesn't give me any strife. And I love the pattern on the leaves, so I'm going to stick that in A. But if it continues to send out yellow leaves, it will go into C, so he better watch himself. So behind me is a plant that I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with, which is this guy here. This is my purple Oxalis triangularis, or purple shamrock, which I absolutely love when in rude health, but tends to be a bit floppy. I don't think it loves my climate. I have to repot this guy every spring. I did a video on that on the channel you can check out. But it does produce nice little delicate pink flowers. Lots of leaves throughout the summer. This might be a bit too small, the pot, for the size of the plant, which is maybe why it looks a bit ropey. But the leaves often die back like that. So I'm gonna put you, mister, into B class. It would otherwise go in A if it didn't do this kind of weird, kind of leaning over, looking a bit straggly thing. So that'll go into B. So this here is what I thought was the better version of the Chinese money plant. This is a Peperomia raindrop, or Peperomia polybotria, I think it's called. And I thought the glossy leaves, which is quite similar to a Chinese money plant, but fuller, as you can see. But I think I might have done a wrong one on it, because I've put it on this west-facing windowsill here. I've since taken it away from the harshest light, but it's not appreciated the harsh light, basically, of the direct sun of the afternoon. And it's dropping some leaves. So it's been dropping leaves for a little while now. It seems to have slowed down a bit, but not the healthiest looking specimen in the world. That's all probably all my fault, to be honest, putting it in direct sun, so avoid that. Getting a bit tall and leggy though, so I'll put this fella into C class. Better than the Chinese money plant, but still not my favourite. This fella down here is my Peperomia obtusifolia, variegated. So you can get one with just green leaves, all green leaves. This one's variegated with a yellow kind of perimeter on the leaves, and it's dead easy to look after. One of the easiest plants to look after, at least in my experience anyway. Oh, I've got a Tradescantia. growing in there. That's odd. A bit of Tradescantia must have fallen in there and taken root, and it's growing in my Peperomia pot. That's interesting, didn't notice that before. Anyway, this fella will grow into A class because it's dead easy to look after. Don't have to do much with it at all, like bright light and a bit of water here and there. And I think it's very handsome as well. Not quite S class. Needs to be a bit more handsome to go in S class, but this will go into A. So these guys normally live on my fireplace hearth. These are my 2 Dieffenbachias, the only 2 Dieffenbachias that I have in my house. And I'm a bit meh about them really, because they do tend to lose leaves at the base of the plant, like so. There you go. They kind of die off at the base. I think this is what Dieffenbachias do. There's more in there, and you end up with a bare stem with leaves at the top. Looks a bit silly. So I'm not that keen on these, to be honest. I've contemplated chucking these guys out, so they're going in D. So this one here, I'm torn, seriously torn, because, well, look at it. It's beautiful, isn't it? This is my Philodendron melanochrysum. And I call it melanochrysum because it's always in crisis. The new leaves unfurling, they often get stuck. So you have to mess around with it tons really to get the new leaves to come out properly. And sometimes they don't, and you end up with deformed leaves. This guy is hanging on in there. And when there's a fungus gnat there flying around my head, which is annoying. But when the leaves are in rude health, like this one is just about, it's beautiful, absolutely stunning. It would go in S class based on looks, because it's one of my absolute favorite plants. I love the velvety texture of the leaves, but because it's a real pain in the bum, it's going in B. Sorry mate, you're going in B class. In my bedroom windowsill, I've got, which I think is called Echeveria setosa. Let me know if I got that wrong in the comments, but very nice plant. So it's some Echeveria with furry leaves. So I'm gonna stick this in B class because I do like how it looks, but it's a bit boring, doesn't really do much, producing an offshoot there. But it is dead easy to look after. Just put it in a bright spot, give it some water when the soil is very, very dry, and you'll be well on your way to success. So I've got a plant down here that is probably my favorite, one of my favorite plants in the house. So this one is going straight into S tier because it's an absolute stunner. This is my Coleus, my red Coleus. It normally has green perimeter around the leaves, but at the moment, maybe because it's not summer, it's not come out yet. But this is an absolutely stunning plant, really quick to grow, grows all summer long, and it can get quite big, so it needs cutting back fairly regularly. And that's what I did to this a few weeks ago. I cut it back at the end of winter because it was looking a little bit leggy, and it's pushed out lots of new growth. And it's absolutely gorgeous, straight into S class. I don't have tons of succulents in my house, but I do have a couple of jade plants, and this is my most established jade plant. I've had this a few years now, I think. It's growing quite well. It's got a nice thick trunk, and I think it's really quite easy to look after, really. Don't have to do much with it. I just lost a leaf there, I think I did. But nice thick glossy leaves, really interesting shape, dead easy to prune. So this guy will go in A class. Up here is my lipstick plant. So I've got 2 lipstick plants. Is there a type of lipstick? Ascananthus. Doesn't say what type it is, but this is the thicker or the larger leafed version. Got the smaller leaf version in the dining room. And this one's fairly new. It's got tons of flowers, but they are dropping at what seems to be an alarming rate. I've got tons of flowers on the floor underneath it, but they are beautiful, rather phallic if you ask me. And I think they're normally quite easy to look after, and they produce flowers all summer. So I'm gonna put this in A. It's one of my favorite plants. I do like the lipstick plants. Over here on the living room fireplace mantle, we have my nemesis, plant nemesis, Zebby, the Calathea zebrina, which to be honest is looking quite handsome at the moment actually, isn't it? But our Zebby here normally looks like a dog's dinner over winter. But I had a grow light over it over winter, which is why it's looking dead nice. But it normally gets crispy leaves like that one there. Hopefully you can see that. And normally this plant looks terrible because of chlorinated water. So I use water conditioner on all my plants, and this has really helped with the brown leaf tips of this plant. So on looks it would go in A, on ease of care it goes straight into D. I can't put it any higher than C because of how tricky it is to look after. It's one of the hardest plants for me to look after. So Zebi, the Calathea zebrina, is going in C. One of the easiest plants you will ever have to look after is the snake plant. This is the variegated snake plant with green and yellow leaves. Don't know the actual scientific name, forgive me, but it's a snake plant. This one featured in my snake plant care video recently, and all I did was just popped 3 smaller plants into this one bigger pot to make it a nice full plant, and I think it looks very handsome. So it doesn't really do much. I'm not a massive fan of snake plants, so it goes into B just because they're a bit boring. They don't really change much because of how slow they grow, so that'll go into B class. This here is my favourite Pothos, Pothos Devil's Ivy, because of the variegation and how easy it is to look after. I think I'll put this in S actually, because I do absolutely love this plant. Just love the variegation in the leaves, and it's currently growing up this moss pole. It's a moss pole that I filled with soil. It's a little bit of an experiment. A mistake on my part because all the mess goes everywhere on the floor, so I'm going to be going back to moss, but the roots have grown into the moss or the soil. So it's attaching onto this, and it should, with time, grow bigger and bigger leaves. So this is a champ, absolutely love it, going in S. Down here, I've got my least favourite Aglaonema, which is a hideous looking thing. I hate it. I hate the way the leaves just look decrepit. I don't know what it's called, what type of Aglaonema it is, and I don't care to look it up either, because it's definitely a D. I've had it hovering over the SMP bin many a time, but I've decided to keep it and see if I can, I don't know, fall in love with it somehow, but I doubt it, so this goes into D class. This guy down here on my bedroom windowsill is the barrel cactus. I put this in B class because it doesn't do anything. It just sits there, grows very slowly. I bought it as quite a small plant. It's filled out this pot, but just a bit boring. I was hoping that this would flower. It doesn't flower, at least in where it lives here in my house, in my climate. So that'll go in B. Quite handsome, quite a statement piece, but especially if they're bigger. So maybe one day that'll get upgraded to A class, who knows. Right, down here we have one of probably my least favourite plant that I have in my house. So this is going straight into D because it's an absolute dog, I hate it. Now I've kind of toyed with the idea of chucking this in my SMP bin because I just hate the way it grows and the way it looks, and it's also tricky to look after. I mean, look at that bare stem there. It's lost all its bottom leaves, as all Chinese money plants do. And you just end up with a lanky stem in the middle with some babies coming out from the base of the plant, which can help to fill it in a bit, but doesn't really do much to tidy this plant up. I hate it. Let me know what you think about this plant in the comments. This is going in D. It's an absolute dog of a plant. Behind my annoying Alocasia, I have another plant that I've struggled with. This is my green-orange plant. And it looks absolutely stunning. Lovely orange stems with green leaves. And it is looking healthy now, but it took a lot of trial and error to get it to this point because the leaves were going black at an alarming rate. And I found that it hates to have any direct sun on the leaves. Do not let any sun rays touch the leaves of this plant. It's very, very sensitive. Even a grow light, I had a grow light over this plant for a week and it burnt the leaves, they went black. Even a grow light, you can't shine on this plant, not too close anyway. So, and also it doesn't like chlorinated water as far as I can tell. That stopped the blackening as well. But it's absolutely gorgeous. So in its current state, I'm sticking this in A because I do have a soft spot for this guy in my heart. Very nice plant. So this section in my house is really the section where I put plants that I'm not sure about. This guy, Alocasia Frydek, is beautiful. Absolutely stunning. But every winter it dies back, loses all its leaves, and then in spring it shoots up again. So I tried to get this to remain alive over winter, and I was mildly successful. Looking a little bit leggy though. So it needs tons of light over winter and a bit of warmth, and it will produce leaves. So I'm going to put that in B, because as with all alocasias, they always die back, especially in my climate. That leaf is dying back there. It does have more than 3 leaves, which is surprising. It's got 5 leaves. Doesn't tend to get many more than that in my experience anyway. So that is going in B class. So this last here is Molly the Monster. This is Monstera. This is a small plant that me and Mrs. Shuffle bought a few years ago from IKEA. Just a small little thing. And it's turned into this monster here. So I'm going to stick Monstera in B, which might surprise a few of you. It's not my absolute favourite plant, Monstera. I do like it when they get the perforation in the leaves, but I find you have to wait an awful long time for that to happen. You have to give it the exact right conditions, the right light and everything, get it climbing up stuff. So it's quite an ordeal to get a Monstera growing the way that you want. I mean, you can have it like this, just kind of left to sprawl all over the floor, although I do have it attempted to tie on this bamboo sticks, but it's too flimsy. So definitely B class, not my absolute favourite, but nowhere near my absolute least favourite. Now this guy down here in my dining room is the hardest plant that I find to look after. This is my string of hearts. Anything string, I really struggle with. Must be my climate, not enough sun for these guys, because I think they are classed as kind of semi-succulents. You're not supposed to water them too much. And this is a cutting that I took from the mother plant to kind of get it to regrow in this kind of weird kind of dish that I've got. And some of the leaves are dying back. So I can never get it to grow healthy. And the stems that hang over the edge of any of these string of hearts plants always twist into each other. So it's a real pain to kind of untangle. So this guy, I guess, will go into D because of how horrible it is to look after. Now I don't have many carnivorous plants in my house, mainly because they always die for some reason. I had a Venus flytrap recently, they just died on me. I don't know why. Very strange, give it distilled water, etc. and lots of light, but it still dies on me. But this guy, I absolutely love. And the Nepenthes, dead interesting traps that it sets. That little insects, got some flies in there that I can see at the moment. So water or digestive enzymes pools at the bottom, and the insect goes in and gets stuck, and it feeds the plants the nitrogen that it needs to carry on growing. So this guy I've not had any issues with. I give it distilled water, give it lots of light, and it's sending out new pictures. So this is an Nepenthes. So I'm gonna stick this in S class because I absolutely love it. It's a new addition to the house, relatively new anyway, only a few months. And I just love these traps. I think they're dead interesting. So in S class, you go, my friend. Next to my Tradescantia tricolour on my windowsill in the kitchen, I have this fella here, which is an Aglaonema. Just looked it up. Apparently it's an Aglaonema lemon mint. Not sure why it's called that. But this is generally a dead easy plant to look after. There is a yellowing leaf there. It does sometimes get yellowing leaves. But to be honest, I think it's recovering from when I stuck it in my dungeon on my basement downstairs from a zero light experiment I did last year. So check that out on the channel. I'll hopefully leave a link in the top right corner somewhere. But this I will stick into B. It's a standard plant really, nothing too special and reasonably easy to look after. And then behind me, here, I have this funny plant here, Philodendron New Red, that is climbing behind this wall, which is why it faces in this weird direction. Got big leaves though, isn't there? Look at that. I like this plant, to be honest. I like the colouring on the leaves. See if I can get that in shot, hopefully. The colouring on the leaves is dead interesting. Very subtle. You can more see it at the back maybe. Very subtle and very interesting. Quite a quick grow as well, and the leaves are sizing up nicely. It does attract lots of dust, so you have to clean it quite regularly. So I'll put this in B, because I do have a soft spot for this guy. Well, this next one is a bit of a sad tale, because it used to be my absolute favourite plants, the Philodendron Birkin. When you get a Philodendron Birkin with leaves like that, absolutely stunning. Warms the cockles of my heart. But They're quite tricky to look after, unfortunately. The new leaves come out all white, and quite often they just die off, like that one there. That's just come off before it's unfurled. That one as well, so it loses leaves, not sure why. I've had it in soil, this one's growing in leca, and it's still struggling. There's a new leaf starting to unfurl there, but that will no doubt die off. So this guy belongs in D, unfortunately. It was S before, and it was looking really healthy. I cut it right back, which is why it's so small now. And it's a real pain in the bum to look after, so that goes in D. And then down here, on my hearth, if I can get it without making a mess, is my money tree, which is very nice. Very, very nice. Very easy to look after as well. No issues with this plant whatsoever. It lives quite far away from the window. I've moved it around tons in my house and it's not batted an eyelid wherever it goes. It's dead easy. And I like the leaves. So where to put you, young man? I'm gonna put you in A. I like it. I like it. Not quite S. It's not absolutely stunning. The leaves are a little bit boring for it to go in S, but how easy it is to look after is going in A. Well done, champ. So I've got a Tradescantia up here on this shelf. This is a Tradescantia teddy bear vine, or Cyanotis coensis. Ooh, I remembered that, that's pretty good. So this one is pretty good. I'm gonna stick this in C because the leaves do die back, as with all Tradescantias, and the foliage isn't as interesting as some other Tradescantias, but they are a bit furry, so I do like that, hence the name teddy bear vine. It's a rapid grower, but it looks a bit ropey at winter, which is why I got all dead leaves in the middle. So that'll go into C. Not quite a dog, but a C, very standard plant. This here is my Philodendron Brazil, which I'm not a massive fan of, to be honest. It's currently living in zeolite, which is semi-hydro. It's got some condensation on the bottom, ruining my wood, probably. But anyway, the foliage is quite interesting, the leaves, the variegation, but looks a bit straggly, doesn't it? So it's not quite a dog, but it's not my favourite, so I'd stick it in C class. Now lots of folks on my channel say that Fittonias are hard to look after, and I'll tend to agree a little bit. This one's doing okay though. This is a little pinky kind of Fittonia. You'll be able to find that in the shops where you are. So I've got a Fittonia in my bathroom that is looking a bit rotten after winter. So I find that they tend to suffer in winter due to the lack of light and warmth and humidity and all that kind of stuff with the radiators on. And they normally bounce back in summer and look very handsome. So this guy, I'm gonna stick in B because I do like it, but can be a bit tricky to look after. What we have here is an annoying plant, unfortunately. I do like it. Well, I think I do anyway. It looks a bit alien, doesn't it? A creature from another planet. And things like that happen on this plant. The old leaves at the end of winter always die back. I think because it's not getting enough light, as with most Alocasias. So I will never put an Alocasia in S or even A class because of how tricky they are to look after. And this guy is no different, always loses its leaves. It needs to send out new leaves every spring. So I'm gonna put this in C. It's not my favorite Alocasia, and it's a real pain in the bum to look after. We've got a Philodendron behind me, which is easier to look after than my Philodendron melanocrisis. This is my Philodendron Varicosum. I've got a latest leaf unfurling there. It's a beautiful plant, and it would go in S class, but for one thing. And the one thing is the massive gaps, internodal spacing is what they call it in the trade, but the gaps between where the petiole, which is that bit there, leaves the stem. So it's a massive gap. So it tends to mean that it tends to look a bit leggy, which is not really my fault, I promise. It is getting good light with this Sansi grow light in here, but it's just the nature of the beast. So the leaves are sizing up nicely. So that's going to go in A class. Would go in S if it wasn't for that internodal spacing malarkey. So I just had to look up the name of this plant. I think it's a Stetsoria corine type of cactus anyway. And it's one of my favourite cactus because it produces these little offshoots that you can propagate. So it's dead interesting. So I'll put this into B class. Cactus don't tend to be my favourite types of plants. I prefer like philodendrons and stuff. But this isn't so bad, dead easy to look after, hasn't given me any trouble. Just put it in a bright spot, give it a thorough drink when it needs it, when the soil is bone dry. And it'll just sit there and do its thing. So that's a B. Just underneath my begonia here, I've got my Hoya. I can't remember what this is called actually. It's a type of Hoya with kind of elongated leaves, very waxy. It's got some slight variegation on the leaves. But I've had this about 3 years now, I think, 2 or 3 years, and it's not really grown that much. Very, very slow grower, and it doesn't flower. Hoyas tend to flower, and this one has yet to flower on me. It's kind of, some of the leaves are going brown as well, and dying off, so I'll have to sort that out. Maybe it needs a repot or something, but wherever I put it in my house, it doesn't grow much, so I'm not a massive fan of this plant. I've contemplated chucking it out lots of times, but it's not too offensive. Doesn't wind me up too much, so I'll stick that in B. No, I'll stick that in C, sorry. Now I don't have many syngoniums in my house, but I've got this one. This is just a green syngonium. Nothing too special. This will go into B. It's a run-of-the-mill kind of plant, dead easy to look after really. Just not that interesting, I don't find. This is a cutting that I took of the mother plant that we lost due to aphids. So this one's reasonably healthy, just lives there and does its thing. Give it a bit of water every now and then. So it's basically your standard plant. Down here, I have got my first plant that I ever owned, me and Mrs. Sheffield. Peace lily. It did have a flower. Oh, it's got another flower here actually. It's flowering there, and I did see another one. Yeah, there's another one in the middle. Probably won't be able to see it. There's one there. So it's got 2 new flowers coming through. So this is, I'll put it there because it's quite heavy. So this is the oldest plant that me and Sheffield own, and I'm going to put it in B. B, yeah. The foliage is boring, but it does produce flowers intermittently, randomly. Give it lots of light, and it will produce flowers, but who knows when they come. Up here, I've got 2 begonias. This is a Rex begonia and a red flame begonia, and they are absolutely stunning, but they look awful during winter, to be honest. And they lose leaves left, right, and center. So you have to constantly tidy them up. So these guys will go into C. If it wasn't for how rubbish they look during winter, they would go into A class. Not quite S, but A class. But because they're tricky to look after, they can both go into C. Right behind me is another Peperomia that I have. This is the Peperomia Santorini, which is very nice. This is probably one of my favourite Peperomias, that and the obtusifolia, variegated. It sends out tons of these weird little flowers. I like the bushiness of the plant. So I'm going to put this in A because I really like the foliage, and it's dead easy to look after as well. Just give it some water, lots of sun, and happy as Larry. So it goes into A class. So most of you will struggle with Tradescantias at home because they always tend to look a bit leggy and basically a bit rubbish. And this one is no different. This is my Tradescantia purple pallida, and this is going in D. It's one of my least favourite plants in the house. It's a real pain to keep looking attractive because these stems grow nice and long, and because they're not crawling on the floor, the leaves die back at the base, loses strength, and then it looks like a horrible mess basically. So I'm not really a fan of this. The leaf don't really do much for me. I thought, before I got it, I thought, oh, I quite like that plant, but since I've got it in my house, I've kind of grown to really hate it. So this will go into D class. Down here is one of my Pothos plants. This is a Scindapsus Pothos Enjoy, whatever way you want to call it. And I quite like this plant. It's not my favourite Pothos. I'll show you that in a second. But I don't know, doesn't really grow that much. It's been through the ringer, I suppose, this plant. I've moved it around all over the place, and I've used it to show taking cuttings for the channel, so it has been cut back quite a lot, which is why maybe it's looking a bit straggly. So not my favourite Pothos, not too bad to look after, so I'll stick that in C. I've got a Philodendron Mamii or something. which is a crawling type philodendron apparently. Just looking at, seeing if there's any issues with the stem, looking a bit floppy, like it needs supporting. But I think that's the nature of the crawling. It will crawl along the surface of the floor. Anyway, not a bad plant, quite handsome, bit of variegation in the leaves. Looks similar to a satin pothos, the leaves. A bit more silvery maybe. So I'm fairly new to this plant, so I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with it. So in the meantime, I'm not madly in love with it. I don't hate it. Relatively easy to look after. This one's in Leca, so I'll stick it in B, why not? I've got a cutting of a Hoya over here, which, if you're not careful with Hoyas like this is a Hoya Lisa, then the tendrils, or the petioles, I don't know what you call these things, the stems I guess, they really will latch onto and kind of suffocate anything that's near it. I nearly pulled off a plant because it was starting to latch onto a little baby Philodendron Brazil down there. So it's quite nice, I like the leaves, and it does produce flowers, pretty white flowers as well. The mother plant in that room is absolutely taken over the corner of the dining room. It's a fast grower once it gets going, but it just looks a bit of a mess. So I'll put this in B, because I do like it. Interesting foliage, but a bit of a pain in the bum to look after. So down here next to my snake plant, I have got my fern, which I know lots of people struggle with ferns, because they go quite crispy, particularly in winter, which is what's happened to this guy. The interior goes crispy because it's not getting enough light. And the exterior is still quite nice, so I'm hoping this will rebound this year now that summer has more or less started, even though it's raining today. So where to put this guy, I'm really not sure. Quite tricky to look after, not a massive fan. It's quite nice though. It's nicer in person than it is on video or in pictures. I'll put that in B, why not? Not too shabby a plant, just looks a bit rubbish out at the end of winter. This fella down here in front of my dining room window will go straight into S-class. Just noticed a couple of yellowing leaves there, which is a bit odd. Doesn't normally happen with this plant. Might be because it's getting blocked off by the sun, but either way, this is normally quite easy to look after, and it's probably one of my favourite plants. Well, it is one of my favourite plants because it's going into S-class. Love the foliage, love the watercolour foliage of this plant, and normally quite easy to look after. I pruned this one back so it's easy to prune, and it branches out nicely. This is a variegated Ficus elastica tineki, and this will go into S-class. If you like a jade plant but want a slightly different version, then the ripple jade is the answer. This is a very nice plant. I love the ripply leaves on this guy, very handsome. Dead easy to look after, like his brother or sister. And yeah, I would put this, where should I put this? It's either A or B. I'll stick it in A because I do really like the plant, but it does tend to lose some leaves, but I think that's just a natural part of aging. It doesn't look leggy or bare or anything, so yeah, that's well-deserved A for this ripple jade. I've got a plant down here, which I can hopefully grab. This is my aloe vera. So I did have an aloe vera before that I got rid of because it was always looking an absolute mess. This one I'm faring better with, but I don't really like it. I've contemplated chucking this bad boy out, but it was a gift given to me by a former colleague at work. But so I thought I'd better keep on to it, but it goes into D class to be honest. Hidden down here, just on Mrs. Sheffield's desk where she works from home for a few days, a week, is my ZZ plant, which, I don't know, I don't really think much of ZZ plants. I would like to try the Raven ZZ with the dark leaves, but the normal ZZ doesn't tend to do much, does it? Very slow growing. So it's a kind of run-of-the-mill plant, not interesting foliage really. Let me know if you love it in the comments. Hopefully I've not offended you. But if ever there was a C plant, it would be this. Not a massive fan. I've got 3 Peperomias in my house, and this is one of them down here. This is my Peperomia angulata. I think it's angulata anyway. There's 2 varieties that are very similar. I think this is the angulata. Might not be because of I don't think the leaves are quite as angular as they should be. But anyway, quite an interesting plant. I don't love it. Bit boring, isn't it, really? It's got interesting flowers, I suppose, at the top. Run of the mill, C. Now, I'd always struggled with this plant before because I had killed one, but this little fella I've had for a while now, a year and a half, something like that. This is my croton, and it's going well, looking very handsome. So this guy will go. I love the foliage, the colourful foliage. Anything with that colourful foliage is absolutely stunning. So I'm sticking that into A. Before I would have said maybe C because of how tricky I found them before. Not sure why. Maybe it's the light in my climate, but that one could go into A because I'm a big, big fan. So there you have it. That is my tier list of all the plants I have in my house. Let me know in the comments if you agree with what I put where and all that kind of stuff, but keep it friendly. I'll put the image on screen now so that you can have a good gander, pause the video, have a good gander on where I put where. So I'll see you again in the next video.